violation necessarily, but what we have the reality of living and working in a pocket where criminal activities seem to be sort of okay, and that's not okay with us. And so we've been working with a lot of people up here to try to figure out how we can make our corner of the city safe, and also for the safety of panhandlers. We've seen and experienced inebriated individuals falling into the street. We've had to call ambulances and things like that, and it just isn't a very good situation for anyone involved.
Well, coming from the perspective of the faith communities, certainly faith communities begin with, as we all do, with this underlying assumption of the value of all people, and that we really seek to hold that all people deserve respect and dignity, and I'm sure everyone on this panel agrees with that. But from the faith perspective, then, as we see our brothers and sisters outside signing in the rain, we take notice and we want to get involved. I think that one of the greatest impacts on the community is that people who panhandle bring us face to face and sometimes even eye to eye with those ugly realities we don't want to see. The realities of poverty and homelessness, mental illness, addiction. Panhandling strips away any facade that all is well in our society. It really does expose the brokenness of our community. Now, as an individual, then, as you are exposed to this ugly reality, you can respond in at least 3 ways. I think the first is that you can respond, you can reach out and try and help somebody. You can try and address the suffering of the other person, which is really good. But ultimately, as we've heard, you're going to see this person over and over, or other people, and ultimately you're not seeing anything get better. And then what happens, I think, is we get compassion fatigue, and we get weary. And when you get weary, I think that is a weakening of our community. Another way you might respond is that you might say, oh, just kind of shut it out. I don't even want to see it. I'm just going to ignore it. I know I can speak for myself. When I've done that, I kind of get a hard heart, and I build this inside wall in me that I shut other things out too, and I kind of lose compassion. And ultimately that also weakens community. I think a third thing that you might do is you can respond with fear or anger. With fear or anger, especially if you're going to see people all the time or a lot daily, and as Christina said, it's an awful thing to have those feelings brought up in you all the time. And ultimately that it's not good for personal serenity, and it's just ultimately, again, will weaken community. So community is weakened through almost all the responses that we might make, and really we're left confused. Even beyond this individual thing, though, is that addressing all the resources that go into ending panhandling is really, I think, missing the point. We spend so much money, and panhandling is like the tip of the iceberg. It's like, just the symptom of what's going on. And if we could address those deeper issues and really, see panhandling almost as a gift, because it's making us see these issues, but a gift that has great price for those who panhandle, and really get to those things. I think that is when our community will be strengthened.
Thank you for reading to our next question. For all of you to respond, and we'll go in the same order as we did before. What will end panhandling?
Why do I have to go first on this one?
You can negotiate among yourselves.
Okay. As I think it was Steve that mentioned earlier, I don't think you really can end panhandling, but there are things I think that can reduce it significantly. Look at the haves. When we compare the haves and the have-nots in the society, the haves want it all, and the have-nots end up with nothing. And the middle class, of course, is in there somewhere. But I think when there's this huge gap between the haves and the have-nots, no one is successful. And our nation really can't continue on like that. So that's my little stump speech. But it really is giving help. It's been mentioned here a few times. I mean, it's helping helping your brother and sister learn how to fish. It's helping them, maybe find a job. I think just giving them money on the street is very temporary, and I am a little biased because sorry Monica, but a lot of people are out there drinking and drugging with this money. So that's the reality of it, and that's how I see it too. But there are places you can give to that really help folks who are in need, and this is really, coming downtown has opened my eyes to this and talking a lot with Monica, but it's really about finding people a place to live where they feel secure. And you can live in a lot of places in Minneapolis where you do not feel secure. Not that I have never lived in a place like that, but I do know people who have, and people who are victims that I've gone to interview, and I've been in their homes, and the door is not secure. The door moves back and forth this much. And the reason I'm there is because the night before there was a shooting in the street. So you really can't feel secure like that. But sleeping under bridges and sleeping in I don't care if it's a tent or on a bench, you really can't feel secure in that. So once folks have a secure place to live, then they're grounded, and then we're hoping that they can find a job and they're self-sufficient and they can go on with their life like that. So to me, it's giving to the organizations. It's not giving $5 or $10 on the street.
Well, I think what's interesting here tonight, and pretty much what I think I expected, and I imagine you did too, is that panhandling is something that feels very undignified and stressful. Is a word that's come up a lot. Stressful for people who have to do the panhandling, stressful for the businesses, stressful for those of us trying to figure out solutions. And so I think we're all motivated to end it. I think the first thing I'm going to say before I say what I think will end panhandling is what I think won't end panhandling is arresting away the problem. And I think we have agreed on that. All over the country, people have tried to arrest their way out of the issue of panhandling, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked anywhere. And it certainly hasn't worked here. We've had people who've been arrested multiple times. And the thing that finally made a difference for them and for the community is when they found a place to live, as Inspector Ernst mentioned. So that is really key. So now, not while everyone who panhandles, of course, is not homeless. But what we do know from our survey that a lot of people who are panhandling legally are indeed homeless, and so ending their homelessness is the most effective thing we can do to end their panhandling. And I think, perfect example, Stephen, when he finally had a home, that's when his panhandling ended. When Fred finally increased his income, that's when his panhandling ended. So helping people increase incomes and ending their homelessness are absolutely key. We in the Office to End Homelessness and the community that works on this plan to end homelessness firmly believe that housing itself is health care, and housing itself is mental health care. And if we have a philosophy now in this community that really is our goal to get people into housing first and foremost. They don't have to be sober, they don't have to do all of these things in order to be eligible for housing. Get them into housing first, and then surround them with the services that they may need or want to help them sustain that housing. And when we do that, the thing that's very fascinating is people who maybe have been sleeping under a bridge for 15 years will all of a sudden start to drink less or use less, and certainly start to ask for money less on the street. And over time, the dignity is restored and the healing is restored, and housing itself has been a healing force for the community. And you can't understate, of course, from our perspective, I think the most important thing is that housing is what improves people's individual lives. But it's also something that improves this entire community's lives. I can guarantee that the business community will be much happier and more satisfied the more that people are in housing. So it is something that's good for all of us. It's also, in many cases, less expensive. We've done studies in Hennepin County and looked at the highest uses of our jails and shelters and detox centers and hospitals. And after we've helped get people into housing, public taxpayer costs have gone down for those individuals. It doesn't necessarily cost more to end somebody's homelessness. In fact, it very often costs less.